Welcome to Future Horizons, the Tempest podcast. I'm your host, Zevi Watmo. In this special edition of the Tempest podcast, we've teamed up with the Royal Aeronautical Society for an update on the Future Combat Air Systems programme. The Royal Aeronautical Society is the world's only professional membership association dedicated to the aerospace and aviation industry. They recently hosted a high-level discussion on the unique role Tempest will play in the delivery of the next generation of global combat air capability. In this podcast, we hear from Richard Berthon, UK MOD's Director of Future Combat Air, Herman Claesen, FCAS Managing Director, BAE Systems, and Air Commodore Jonny Moreton, the MOD's FCAS Portfolio Director, as they reflect on the key points discussed at the Roundtable discussion, hosted by Editor-in-Chief Tim Robinson.
What were the key takeaways from this Roundtable? What was your highlights?
Yeah, thanks very much, Tim. This is Richard Berthon speaking. For me, it was an opportunity to sort of resituate the programme in the strategy that we launched 4 years ago and take stock of progress. And I think what is really evident is that we have really accelerated and started to build momentum in the FCAS programme. I think we've got a clear path forward, some very exciting progress with international partners, some very concrete outcomes in terms of technology. And what's really exciting is seeing how the skills base that underpins the programme is beginning to take shape. This concept of a generation Tempest, ready, fit for purpose, excited, committed to a UK partner programme in an international context is a very exciting time.
And what were your highlights?
Yeah, so from my point of view, I echo Richard's words. I think everybody around the round table reflected what an exciting time it is to be part of the national endeavour of generating the next generation combat air system, and indeed showing tangible progress through the 2018 combat air strategy. In terms of the product we are developing, the solution we're developing, the system we're developing in response to these very challenging operational requirements, the significant investments we're making across the UK with the help of government and industry partners to de-risk those technologies, the creation of the program, where we spoke a lot about what it takes to actually get us to 2035. We, as I keep saying, we're trying to crack the codes in terms of making this program happen within an extraordinary short timescale compared to previous programs. And that brings in challenges around enablers, digital challenges, but also attracting the right skills and inspiring a new generation to be part of this program.
Okay. Jonny, what were your thoughts from this event?
So I think I'd start with the impressive diversity around the table in terms of where we had both government and industry folk represented, both at the key prime partners as well as the supply chain. And then I think the theme that came through that both Richard and Herman have just commented on is that is the pace at which we need to go and do this program, the pace that we've taken this program thus far, and the fact that we can't let up and indeed have to increase that pace in order to achieve the ambition of 2035 for a program. I think the fact that we highlighted during it, the fact that we've come so far from a technology perspective, post their combat air strategy in 2018, the importance of making those decisions in 2018, and the fact that that's built a fantastic enabling foundation for the future that allows us to have a really good go at 2035 as an ambitious timeline for the programme.
And Tim, I enjoyed our conversation about the strategic context. I think we're all really concerned by what's happened with Ukraine and the change in the international context, the threat context that suggests. What we're seeing is the importance of control of the air, capabilities that can deliver that in the future against a fast evolving threat. I think we're seeing the importance of being able to upgrade capability to respond to an emerging threat on a day-to-day basis, and the importance of embedding that in our approach to a future combat air system. So it's agile, it's responsive, it's flexible. And lastly, the importance of resilience in our national technical industrial base in defence. We reflected, I think, on just how important that is in a very unstable global context, how Ukraine has shown that we've got to regain that and how important it is to the nation. It's part of growth and prosperity, but it's also a fundamental underpinning part of our national security.
Do you think there's any other projects, ongoing in the UK or even the world that draw everything together in such a way in all these different factors? I mean, I'm struggling to think of any myself, but.
I mean, defence has got AUKUS and the nuclear endeavour remains obviously really front and centre. I think in the civil side, something like the James Webb Telescope is a really good example of that's the kind of thing that excites kids into STEM. It shows them the art of the possible, very inspiring. But I do think we've got a unique proposition here with Tempest and FCAS because it does link the military capability with amazing technology. A growth in skills across the UK in a way that can inspire a next generation, and I find that really exciting.
Well, obviously the big news from Farnborough earlier this year was there was going to be a supersonic, low observable, flyable demonstrator planned within the next 5 years, which is really, really exciting, and it's a sign of tangible progress. But with so much being done digitally and digital twins, digital model-based systems engineering, where you've already done first flights there, many first flights. How do you measure progress or demonstrate it to partners and politicians, external stakeholders, the media, taxpayers, where you are in this when it's all happening in the computer?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and again we touched on that in the roundtable, didn't we? On quite a few questions and discussions we had. I think we're showing progress in quite a few areas. I think so. First of all, as you alluded towards, Farnborough, we announced the demonstrator, the supersonic low observable aircraft. And, excellent progress has been made on that despite the pandemic since 2018. To give you a couple of examples, we're already flying it, as you alluded towards. Thanks to the digital methodologies, we're now turning software cycles around in a matter of hours instead of months on previous combat air programs. Which brings me on to the second point, is another measure, is that we are building the program to 2035. We are looking at all the key ingredients required to make that happen. We're looking at the way the delivery construct between international partners needs to be created, both government and industry. We're looking at the technology route maps we need and the corresponding investment that links into the different design reviews. And finally, we're looking at all the enablers, which is a key facet of this program. The only way we're going to make this program happen by 2035 if we're able to master and unlock the potential of digital technologies by rethinking our processes, by looking at different tool sets, by creating that collaborative working environment. And I think we all recognise at the table that's one of the biggest challenges we have to bring that to life and make that happen, particularly within a security context.
I think to tie that together a little bit in terms of 2035, that for us is the start of the journey. So the conversation about enabling industry, enabling governments in terms of the programme to that point is from there we are looking at a capability that can evolve, can spiral, keep pace with the threat for the next 30, 40 years. And I think that's a real challenge for us now, because we're not just building something to forget in 2035. We're building something to start in 2035 and take that journey forward.
A question here, playing devil's advocate, is we've heard before, I've been in the job longer than I should mention, but digital design, concurrent development, promising faster, cheaper, better has been tried before. You think of the Boeing 787, A380, F-35, did not deliver on their much hyped promises. Why will Tempest FCAS be different this time around?
Because the way the program is constructed, it allows us to go in a lot more detail around that at the start of the program.
Yeah.
First of all, we recognise it as an absolutely fundamental and critical enabler, and we don't want to want to run away from that challenge. So we're taking a risk-based approach to the program. We're analysing the construct of the program, and we're identifying the pinch points, the difficult parts of the program, in particularly around the digital enablers. And we are already looking, we're doing some today, we are going to do more at demonstration activities that specifically mitigate that risk away, instead of relying on one big bang that allows that to happen down the line. We also talked on at the Roundtable that this is not necessarily a technology problem. Most of the technology is already there. It's about a mindset, a way of working, and it's about scaling it up to the level of complexity and size that we need to address on the FCAS program.
I think, Tim, there's a level of confidence that these tools achieve the goals we're aiming for. There is evidence. This is not transformational fairy dust, as I've heard it described. We know that if we apply the tools in the way that Herman's described, we can achieve the benefits, the goals that we aspire to. Now, that means that doesn't mean you guarantee success, and it's hard, and it requires absolutely ruthless focus across both government and industry. It's also beholden on government to think really hard about how we set up the program, how we do our approvals, our funding, our engagement, our contracting with industry. Even more important, perhaps, how we set up the delivery structures with international partners to learn lessons from previous programs. But the evidence is there that this can be done. We've just got to have, what I think we do have is a ruthless focus on pace. And I said during the session, pace is king. It's absolutely our shared top priority with our international partners, with our industry colleagues. And that gives us a pretty clear way forward and a marker that we're aiming for.
So a good example of where we are doing a lot of work at the moment based on your challenge there about previous programs, F-35, in particular in terms of digital certification and airworthiness, is that it's not just a program problem. We have dependencies on our military aviation authority to say, actually, you need to be match fit for FCAS as well, because you need to be providing the assurances that actually the digital evidence that we provide on airworthiness is something that it's acceptable to you. And that's important to us, because at the moment they're not quite orientated that way. So we are looking across all our dependencies to say, okay, if FCAS is going to deliver a program this way, how do you need to change in order to accept that?
Okay. Is there anything in the round table that we didn't get to talk about that you felt we missed out?
There's something we did talk about a bit, which perhaps had more was more central than I'd expected, was around sustainability and the relationship between combat air is not what you naturally think of as a sustainable industry, and yet it is beholden on us. And a very interesting comment from some of our perhaps younger colleagues around the round table, that Generation Tempest is also Generation Net Zero, and we have got to be able to appeal to that kind of demographic, that kind of workforce, to inspire them and show them that they can make a difference in a field that might naturally feel almost the antipathy of net zero. But if you can make a difference in Tempest on sustainable goals, that's an amazing thing to have achieved. So it was really hearing from a different generation that that's something that's going to be important to them. And it's really resonated with me.
I think we touched on the international partnership, and we shouldn't underestimate the work we are doing with our international partners. We're in a very important phase at the moment where we try to understand what each other's objectives are, requirements are, and these are really good, healthy and constructive and energized conversations. So I've got a good feeling about this. This is building up quite nicely, and I look forward, because we recognise as part of the strategy it has to be an international program. So it's a key tenet of the program that we're working on, and we're making good progress on that.
We announced, obviously, back in Farnborough that we were going to explore what the scope of what our ambition is for partnering with Japan. And I think the conversations that we've had over the course of this year really show that there's an awful lot of synergy there. There's a lot of opportunity. These aren't hypothetical conversations. They are engineers working together, up at Moreton, in other locations, out in Japan, and they're making really concrete progress. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to explore a really ambitious partnership with Japan, and look forward to being able to make some announcements on that in the near future.
And that, of course, includes our colleagues in Italy as well, but a lot more of a known partner. So, we've been doing combat air work for more than 50 years now with them. So, we know them well, and equally so, our engineers are collaborating with them too, in the same as Richard described with Japan.
And militarily, if you just look across the partners, so Japan and Italy. Just look at their combat air forces that they operate today. We're all F-35 operators. We're all fourth-gen operators as well. And so there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of commonality. And I think as the program goes to the next level.
I think what we also share as partners is a commitment to interoperability. Yeah. For us within NATO, for the Japanese bilaterally with the United States. An FCAS partnership doesn't diminish that. That all three countries have an approach to FCAS which is very much complementary to our strategic, our military, our political relationships with the United States. And I think we're all really keen to reinforce that, even as we start working together. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. I think this is a net benefit, both to the US and its allies having a resilient, complementary, diverse military capability, and a robust industrial base that supports it across, so not just in the United States, but around its partners as well.
And what do you think is the most exciting technology that you look across Tempest and you think, wow, that really is a game changer? Is there anything that sort of stands out that you comes to mind?
Well, I think we can't say too much around the product. Unfortunately, there are some world firsts.
Yeah.
That we already, through the demonstrator we are designing, developing and building, that we've managed to secure. But I think the enablement part, doing this, designing this in a true digital environment, creating high fidelity virtual environments at the start of the design life cycle that we can test the solution in through digital models. That is quite groundbreaking.
Yeah.
To do that at that scale and complexity and making that happen in an international environment is going to be one of the most interesting things to get done.
I think the work that Herman and the Team Tempest partners have done in Team Tempest since 2018 has shown we can achieve global and European technology firsts. And we've also got partners who are strong and bring something to the party. So this is a team sport. And we've got a good team.
Okay. So final question there. Final quick question is, it's obviously a once-in-a-generation opportunity here, but for anyone interested in aerospace, AI, defence, what's your quick one-sentence tips for any young people who want to get involved?
Well, I think this program gives you everything. It's an engineering challenge. It's an amazing system that we will be developing. We're going to be rewriting the engineering rulebook and the manufacturing rulebook to be part of that, of what truly is a national endeavour with international partners. It couldn't be more exciting.
I'd say there's a 10-year-old out there today that's going to be the first test pilot in 2035.
And as a non-pilot, what I'll say is this program needs to do things differently than programs have operated before. We need disruption, we need innovation, we need challenge, and we need robust engineering skills, a great diversity of skills. But you can come in and make a difference. That's what somebody can bring to FCAS. It'll make a difference to national security, in technology terms. It's hugely important for the nation. And most importantly, I think it's an opportunity for people to do something worthwhile.
Wow. Excellent. All right. Well, we'll obviously be keeping a close eye on this project as it develops and look forward to further exciting news. Thank you all much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our special edition of Future Horizons, the Tempest podcast.